was there. All these are young people, planning, scheming. Maybe Begin was also there. So this young Jew, he had a conscience. So he says, while this discussion is being carried on, he said, I'm reading from his book, he said, I had the disturbing impression that even he, Weizmann, like most of the other Zionists, was inclined to transfer the moral responsibility for all that was happening in Palestine to the outside world. The moral, for all the trouble that was brewing, they say, British is responsible, the Germans are responsible, but not themselves. They are immaculate, masoom, sinless people. This impelled me to break through the differential hush with which all the other people present were listening to him. They were awed. Weizmann talking, nobody did interject. And to ask, he says, and to ask, he asked, and what about the Arabs? So look, the way you are carving out this country, this was in 1926. So look, you're going to take this like that, and you'll take that like that, and we'll take this Gaza Strip here, and we'll take this Jordan here like that. He said, look, what about the Arabs? So this our reporter says, Leopold Weiss, Austrian-German Jew, he said, I must have committed a faux pas, a false step, something that I shouldn't have, something out of turn, by thus bringing a jarring note into the conversation. For Dr. Weizmann turned his face slowly toward me, put down the cup he had been holding in his hand, and repeated my question. What about the Arabs? What about them? So what about them? What about the Arabs? Well, this young man bleats. Well, how can you hope to make Palestine your homeland in the face of the vehement opposition of the Arabs, who, after all, are in a majority in this country? They are in a majority in this country, in Palestine. So the Zionist leader shrugged his shoulders and answered dryly. He said, we expect they won't be in a majority after a few years. We expect they won't be in a majority for very long. Perhaps so, this young man says. You have been dealing with this problem for years and must know the situation better than I do. But, quite apart from the political difficulties, which Arab opposition may or may not put in your way, does not the moral aspect of the question ever bother you? The moral aspect, robbing somebody else's property, somebody else's land, somebody else's home, does that not bother you? Don't you think that it is wrong on your part to displace the people who have always lived in this country? But it is our country, replied Dr. Weizmann, raising his eyebrows. This is our country. We are doing no more than taking back what we have been wrongly deprived of. This is the mentality. This is our country, and we have been deprived of rightfully what belonged to us. We have been wrongfully deprived. By who and when? Raises the question. When and who? You see, the Jews, 70 years after Jesus, a Roman governor by the name of Titus, these Jews were giving endless trouble in Palestine. So he kicked them all out. Out into the world, disperse them. Don't want a single Jew to be left there. That's 2,000 years ago. That is what happened in the year 70 after Christ. Now, on that strength, that they were living there 2,000 years ago, now they are going to uproot the present people. And they say, this is our land, this is our home. So this young Jew, he cries, he bewails about his own people. He said, how was it possible? I wondered, how was it possible for people endowed with so much creative intelligence as the Jews? Wallah, there's no exaggeration. This man, he's a Jew, he's praising his own people, but there's no exaggeration. He says, so much creative intelligence as the Jews. To think of the Zionist-Arab conflict in Jewish terms alone. Did they not realize that the problem of the Jews in Palestine could, in the long run, be solved only through friendly cooperation with the Arabs? Couldn't they think? Were they so hopelessly blind to the painful future which their policy must bring? To the struggles, the bitterness, and the hatred to which the Jewish island, even if temporarily successful, would forever remain exposed in the midst of a hostile Arab sea? And how strange, I thought, that a nation which had suffered so many wrongs in the course of its long and sorrowful diaspora was now in single-minded pursuit of its own goal, ready to inflict a grievous wrong on another nation, and a nation too that was innocent of all that past Jewish suffering. Such a phenomena I knew was not unknown to history, but it made me nonetheless very sad to see it enacted before my eyes. This is how this Jew cried, what this was going on. Now, how is all this possible? That a people with such great intelligence, they can't see what they're doing, the injustice that they're committing. They can't see. You see, it can happen, and it has happened again and again. People can be programmed, brainwashed. We all get brainwashed. Everybody is trying to brainwash us, trying to give you their point of view. This is natural. And the Jews, they had brainwashed themselves, and they brainwashed the Christians. And the way they did it, you know, I have been more fortunate than most of you in having a first-hand experience of all these, what I'm relating to you now. You see, I have been working for the Jews. I worked for a Jewish firm which today has more than 125 branches in South Africa, Beer Brothers. At the time when I was working for them around the 50s, they had 9 establishments. 9. Today, it's a millionaire thing, a billionaire concern. They have more than 125 branches in and around South Africa. Perhaps they have something in Cape Town as well, Beer Brothers. I work for them. So you must say, well, they must have paid you, to say what I'm saying. I said, no. Allah is my witness that what I'm sharing with you is the actual factual happenings, and the reasoning and the discussions, the dialogues I've had with the Jews. My boss, Mr. Bernie Beer, he's now in Israel. He's settled down there now. Bernie Beer. He calls me one day. I was a dispatch clerk in this firm in West Street, Durban. So he calls me one morning. He says, Diedat, he says, I have a Jewish couple from the Argentina, and I would like to take them to the Indian area, give them some Indian meals, food, and show them the Indian area. What would you suggest? So I said, there is a Goodwill Lounge in Victoria Street, Durban. But I said, the only thing Indian about that is the curry powder they put into the curry. It's all Western. It's like a Western hotel, but the curry powder makes it Indian. So I said, but look, why don't you come to my house, and I will give you what we eat, and I will play some Indian music in the background. Then I will take you to the mosque, and that will complete your mental picture of my people, our people, the Indians. Oh, he says, that's an idea, but let me find out from my wife. The Westerner doesn't do anything without consulting his wife. He said, look, I'll find out from my wife and I'll let you know tomorrow. Next morning, he calls me again. He says, Diedat, my wife is very happy about what you are suggesting, and he takes out 3 pounds, which was a stupendous amount those days. He said, look, take this. It might help you in arranging the meals. I said, no, sir, keep it. He said, no, it'll help you. I said, thank you. Made the appointment. According to the appointed time, they came. I lived right in the center of the town, near the Juma Masjid, within a year short of the Azan, in a building called now Rajab Building, just across, about 100 meters away. So they came, I welcomed them, Mr. and Mrs. Beer, Mr. and Mrs. Daniels of Licol Products, they have the juices they make. They had a factory in Durban, and this couple from the Argentina. I welcomed them home, we sit down to eat, our roti. I know you know roti. I said, this is the unleavened bread of the Jews. Unleavened means without yeast. Says, this is the unleavened bread of the Jews. And they enjoyed the meal, and we eat with our hands. I says, Jesus Christ also was washing his hands before eating, so we do the same. We wash our hands and we eat. And as soon as we finish the meals, we heard the azan. We can hear the azan from our dining table. So I said, you hear, sir? That is the Muslim call to prayer. You know what he's saying? He says, no. I said, he's saying, Allahu Akbar, which means Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest. He repeats it 4 times. Then he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, which means I bear witness that there is no other object of worship but Allah. He repeated it twice. So Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, said, I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. He's not God. He's not his son. Don't make a mistake like the others have done.